do this. Perfect. Namaste, guys. Christian Long, Life Enhancement Consultant, giving you a big and beautiful shout out on this Transformation Q&A Thursday. And before we begin, let us invoke. Place your hands on your heart. Remember the joints of your thumb pressing to the center of your chest, making physical contact. The tips of your fingers are pointing straight up. And be aware of the heart. Be aware of the center of the heart. Be aware of the crown. Be aware of the center of the crown. And be aware of the center of the heart and center of the crown simultaneously. And mentally follow me to the Supreme God, Divine Father, Divine Mother, to respected and beloved teacher, Grandmaster Choa Koksui, to Lord Mahaguru Jmeling, to Lord Buddha Kuan Yin, to Lord Ganesh, to Saraswati, to Holy Master Count Saint Germain, to all the holy gurus, holy masters, saints, archangels, holy angels, healing ministers, to our divine selves or higher souls, we humbly invoke for your divine light, divine love, divine power, for your help, guidance, and protection, for your wisdom of observing truth, experiencing truth, and embodying truth. We thank you, Lord God. We thank you all. With gratitude, respect, and love, so be it. So be it, as so it is. Thank you. All right. Woo. Welcome, everybody. I have some good news. A client of mine over the past year and a half who, funny enough, her stepmother, right? Stepmother? Yeah. Her stepmother, pranic healer, arhatic yogi for many, many, many years, like at least a decade. She got exposed to pranic healing many, many years ago, but never really got any healings, never really did any of the meditations, but just knew of her stepmother was a practitioner, pranic healing and arhatic yoga. And somehow, some way she found me. Well, the somehow, some way is she found me through a referral of one of my other clients. And this weekend, after the long journey of a year and a half and dipping her toe in one class and then getting excited and getting the benefits and then dipping her toe in another class and then throwing herself entirely into the deep end of the ocean, she's now doing arhatic yoga this weekend, which is going to be really, really good for her. Super excited about that. So if I haven't mentioned that before to you guys, right, that's my clean little secret, is getting you enrolled into taking arhatic yoga prep. As instructors, as intro leaders, our job is to get people to the door of the teacher, right? So the door of the teacher, we all have the free will to walk through the door, or we have the free will to turn around and walk another direction or go through a different door, right? So my job as a practitioner and the work that I do is to get people to the door of the teacher. And in essence, like my ultimate goal, working with clients, working with students, is to get them to arhatic yoga and get, yeah, that's right, you're going to be rolling very soon, is to get them to arhatic yoga prep, get them practicing, and then they're on their own. Not literally, right? But my, you could say my sense of obligation is less, because it's like, yay, we took you from not knowing anything about energy, not knowing anything about healing, not knowing anything about meditation, and we just gradually, brought you through this system that has been proven to be very, very effective. So very, very grateful for that she'll be taking that. And then, as one of my mentors recently said, she's going to need more healing. I was like, what do you mean she's going to need more healing? She goes, hello. She took this class, this class, this class, this class, this class, back to back to back to back to back. And she's taking our arhatic yoga prep. What do you think is going to happen? I was like, yeah, she's going to need more healing. Why? Because each class you're taking is an initiation of the energy body, and karma is being accelerated. So the recommendation is to do more service as you're going through the classes, and to do more tithing as you're going through the classes, and to release the energy, which we do through service, working at a soup kitchen, a feeding program, doing healing on people, ideally healing on people, right? Because we're generating lots and lots of energy in our energy bodies. And now it's like, okay, well, what are we going to do with all this energy? We can use it to heal, to help, to serve, or we can use it for our own destruction, our call, right? Again, we have free will. That's why most people If they meditate, meaning they accumulate lots and lots of energy, lots and lots of prana, the aura gets big, the chakras get big, and they don't use it to serve, use it to heal, the energy becomes overwhelming in their system. They feel full all the time and they quit. Inevitably. That's why one of my mentors in Florida says practicing our hatha yoga regularly is like climbing a mountain every day, right? Because it's not easy to do. To look at your stuff all the time, to purify your stuff all the time, to do the work that is required. And again, as Master Choa Koksui says, spirituality is not just meditating. It's a whole state of being, right? So proud of her, super proud of her, super excited. I told her we'll have to be doing some additional healings in the upcoming weeks after class to make her upgrade smooth and not so difficult for her in her life. Because how many of us want to have our lives uprooted constantly? Oh, wait a minute. I still have my hand up. So apparently I'm one of those people. Does reviewing do the same thing? That's an excellent question. So does reviewing the classes stir up things as though you're taking the class for the first time? Not necessarily. So for instance, let's say you're in the gym, and I'm making this very simple. You're in the gym, you're exercising, and you work up 10 pounds, 20 pounds, 30 pounds, 40 pounds, 50 pounds, and you're at 50 pounds, and then there's an injury. And then you go back a month later and you're not able to lift as much, but you're not all the way back to zero, right? So meaning, if you regularly do your meditations and you regularly do your service and you regularly do your tithing and you do the protocol that's recommended for practitioners, specifically our hatha yoga practitioners, when you go to retreats, God, if I only knew earlier. I did know. Pride and other things were in the way. But if you follow the system, when you go to retreats, when you review classes, it will be a beautiful experience for you, right? Beautiful experience for you. But if you don't do your practices regularly, you're not doing service, you're not doing tithing, you're not stuffing your karmic bank account with good prosperity energies that you can withdraw from when things get squirrely, then your life is going to fall apart around you. Okay. That's when people have what is known as a big purge. They go to a retreat and they're like, yay, I'm going to this weekend retreat, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and I'm going to evolve and I'm going to have all these wonderful high level experiences and these really deep, rich meditations. And then you just see them crying the entire weekend. I cannot tell you how many times I've seen that, right? And it has nothing to do with the teacher or with the school and the practices, but it has to do with the impurities of the students. So this can happen in any school, in any religion, right? They don't call it purging per se. I remember when I was in the TM movement, when I was a TM practitioner, and we would call it de-stressing. That was the term. So when someone was meditating a lot and then completely losing their mind at some point in their practices, we would say, that person's de-stressing, which is kind of an interesting way of, and George Carlin, the late great comedian, does a whole bit on this about how when we change the language of something, which I see in one of the questions we'll get to in a minute, when you change the language of something, it changes how it's perceived by other people. That's how you can manipulate people. And governments and businesses and the masses have been doing it for eons of time, right? So back in the day, in the 20s, 30s, and 40s, when somebody was suffering from the effect of war, they would call it shell shock, right? It's pretty intense. It's pretty like to the point. Then as it went through the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, they changed the language. So they removed the humanity. They removed what's actually happening, and they made it post-traumatic stress disorder, which is what my father had, right? So when you change language, it changes people's perception of it. And that's not always a good thing, right? It's also it's what you say and how you say something, right? They go, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. So the how is the tonality and the energy behind it, but also what you say manipulates people's perceptions, right? So that's why as a society, we've conditioned ourselves so much to not speak from the heart because we're so conditioned in the throat and the ajna that it has to be politically correct that it misses its humanity, right? Um, and that's a whole other conversation. Actually, I've been looking into that the past week or so of understanding emotions and expressing emotions and feeling emotions as opposed to over analyzing them and staying in your ajna and throat about your emotions, right? That's a whole other conversation outside of today's Q&A. So yes, when you review, you're going to get healed. You're going to get fed. That's a big thing, right? You're going to get fed with light, fed with wisdom when you go to all the classes, whether it's basic pranic healing and you've been practicing for 20 years, or it's the highest level of our Hatha Yoga that's offered, right? Level 6. You're going to be fed no matter where you are because God is infinite. God is all providing. So you're like, I'm super advanced and I'm super developed in comparison to who? Maybe in comparison to an ordinary person that lacks consciousness and awareness, but compared to the great beings, we're teeny tiny, we're like amoebas in essence, in some ways, compared to the great teachers. So you can always get fed. If you're in an advanced school, you will always get fed, even at the basic classes. So I would encourage each and every person to review, especially, you might want to write this down, the classes you don't like. Especially the classes that you don't like. Okay, first question, right into it. Have you heard the term resting bitch face? Yes, I have. These are people who always have this look of loneliness, pissed off, or just angry on their face no matter what. Is this an energetic imbalance that needs to be dealt with, or is it just an impression of making something out of nothing? Well, there's levels of truth and there's facets of truth, right? Resting bitch face usually applies to whom? It's kind of in the title, the derogatory labeling of it. Bitch connected to a woman, right? So in general, resting bitch face is connected to a woman. Why would a woman have a resting bitch face and a guy doesn't have a resting, a-hole face? What's the difference? Well, from a societal standpoint, the resting bitch face is typically meant to what? Push people away, to say, danger, danger, don't come any closer, right? So interestingly enough, one of the master pranic healers who does pranic facelift, pranic body sculpting said at one of the retreats, maybe 5 years ago, that a lot of women through trauma with men will put on weight to create a physical barrier between them and the man to feel safe, right? To feel safe. That's obviously on the extreme end. On the less extreme end, the woman can just condition herself, the resting bitch face, to ward off intruders, as it were, right? And it's funny because I know there's a person, whenever I hear the term resting bitch face, there's a very specific person that pops up into my mind that literally, like, her face is frozen in that posture most of her life. And knowing her backstory, it makes sense, right? It makes sense why she is that way. But if this person is wanting to connect with another person for intimacy, for resources, for the desire to connect as like a relationship, guess what? Slowly and gradually, the resting bitch face can melt and transform and transmute into a bright, shiny, loving face. So it's a protective mechanism. And I've kind of noticed people that in my life experience, people that are very rough around the edges, because I came from a rough neighborhood. I came from people that were very emotionally dysfunctional. And so I was always comfortable with people who were aggressive and who were not polite because I always saw it as a facade. And so I would just poke that facade, and the person was like, hey, my aggressiveness is not deterring this person from wanting to connect with me, or my resting bitch face is not deterring them from wanting to approach me or talk to me or what have you. Those people, if you're in their inner circle, they open up very quickly and they exchange energy very quickly, men and women. That's been my experience. So these people, is this an energetic imbalance that needs to be dealt with, or is it just an impression of making something out of nothing? No, it is something, right? It is something so much we have a coin phrase for it. So obviously it is something, but it's connected mostly to the solar plexus because we're wanting to shield people connecting to us emotionally, right? So if the heart's open and activated, you have a big smile or a soft smile, or your energy is soft, right? But if your solar plexus is big and your heart is not very activated, it will come off as that, right? It'll come off as aggressive. And danger, danger, beware. Don't come any closer. But the interesting thing is, and this is taking me time to learn, and I'm probably still in the process of learning it. My intentions with people are not malicious, are not vindictive. So when I see somebody in that fight or flight or aggressive mode, I kind of push them. I push them to get them to come out, like to either react or what have you. I don't recommend doing that. I'm just giving you my personal experience because I'm not afraid of somebody yelling at me, screaming at me, losing their cool, whatever, because I'm comfortable with my intentions of I do want to connect. Men or women, doesn't matter. I do want to connect in a good, wholesome way, right? So whatever. If they're going to get worked up, they get worked up. And then inevitably we transform and transmute the energy, and then something can form from that, a friendship, a relationship, what have you. But if you're not comfortable doing that, and it can be a form of emotional abuse and manipulation, meaning pushing somebody faster than they're comfortable with, right? I choose to keep people around in my life that push me and encourage me to become better. Yes, there are times I want them to get away from me so I can do my own thing. But that being said, in general, I encourage people to push me to get me outside of my comfort zone. The guy that I've been spending time with who flew out today, him and I were constantly pushing each other's buttons to grow, to push, to grow, to push, to grow, to push, to go to the next level. So, but you can't force somebody to be in that dynamic with you. So if you're pushing and it's uncomfortable, back off. If their bite is worse than their bark in your life, back off, right? You have to respect people's boundaries. That's something that took me a long time to figure out. It's not my specialization because in my mind, my intentions are pure. In my mind, my intentions are to have a good time or to heal or to laugh or to mix it up in a healthy way. But they don't know that, right? And so it took me many years to be able to read people of like, this is a person I can push in this way, or this is a person that is definitely not open and receptive to playing like that, as it were, right? So I hope that answered the question. There wasn't a super solid question. Is there an energetic imbalance? Yes. The heart is underactivated, the solar plexus is overactivated, and there's a shield around the solar plexus. Or is it just an impression of making something out of nothing? No, it's not. Okay, next question. I've heard stories of yogis and others seeking enlightenment by doing some psychedelic drugs or other things to find bliss. Does this work? What is the ultimate purpose? Or is it just druggies, quote unquote, looking for an excuse to use? Excellent question. And I have to be very careful of going off the rails with this one. In my opinion, I've been doing spiritual work for 22 years religiously, meaning I've been consistent with my practice and I've chosen a path and I've been consistent with that path. I've never used drugs, psychedelics to become enlightened, to experience bliss, to have altered states of consciousness. Have I used pot? Yes. Have I done edibles? Yes. Have I had alcohol? Yes. Have I been in excess of any of those things? Not really. Like my excessive drinking was one of my exes. I almost never drank. And I said, I wonder what it would look like if not proud of this. I was experimenting. I was curious, right? I go, I wonder what it would look like if I drank, those big, not the giant bottles of vodka, but, a normal sized bottle of vodka and then a normal sized bottle of rum. I go, I wonder If I drank those 2 bottles within a 1 week period, what would happen? Curious, right? Because my father was an alcoholic for 15 years. He wouldn't be ashamed of me sharing that with you. I'm not discrediting his memory or degrading him in any way. It was a condition that he had, right? That his whole life suffered because of it. And I saw how it affected his life. I saw how alcohol affected one of my brother's lives. And then I saw my other brother didn't affect him at all. And I had, at that time, not really drank at all, occasionally here and there with friends. But I go, I wonder what would happen. Because I know alcohol has a cleansing effect, but the key word is cleansing effect in minute, not minute, but small portions. So in general, it's 1 shot of high or 1 shot of top shelf vodka or sake, clear alcohol that has a cleansing effect. Now, if you're predestined to alcoholism, you don't practice that protocol. You don't practice that in cleansing your aura, right? But 1 shot, if you look at what it does to the person's health rays, it strengthens and straightens their health rays, and then it pushes congestion out. So it's a fast way, and it's fun. So 1 shot. Wine has a similar effect, but it's not as rapid. Okay. So anyways, so within I think 5 days into it, I was almost done with both bottles, and it wasn't like I was doing shooters, but it would just be, okay, tonight is day 3. Let's see, I'll have a couple shots, and then day 4 or night 4, I'll have a couple more shots. And I was experimenting, and then around day 5, something interesting happened. I thought I was going to die. My heart was beating super, super fast. I was feeling lightheaded, and I went to the ER because I thought something was going to happen to me, because some of you may or may not know this, but my body does have a heart condition, mostly from stress. It's not necessarily a genetic heart condition or something like that, or, I'm have to monitor my heart all the time, but I was brought up in a very, very stressful environment. I had a resting heart rate of 125 beats per minute, meaning just sitting in a chair doing absolutely nothing, my heart would go, right? Then through meditation, it got down to about 72, 75 beats per minute resting. And now it's even lower, okay? So I could literally feel my pulse through my neck. And I said, this doesn't seem right. And she goes, well, what do you want to do? I go, well, let's go to the ER. And, they checked me up, upwards and downwards, and they said, no, everything's fine. I'm like, okay. And that was my last experiment with drinking excessively. So I, quote unquote, got it out of my system. So you're like, well, what does this have to do with drugs, alcohol, and spiritually evolving? Well, alcohol has a cleansing effect. That's about it. But it also kills brain cells, but it also congests your energy body at a certain level of your development. So when you practice your meditations, you accumulate and generate gold, right? So gold is produced in the crown. Yes, we all have gold in our aura. We all have gold in our crown. If not, we wouldn't be alive. As we grow and evolve, not just the crown is experiencing gold, the other chakras and the aura starts experiencing gold, right? When you drink alcohol at a certain level, that gold is being consumed by the alcohol. So you're losing, quote unquote, losing gold, because gold rejuvenates, regenerates, revitalizes, right? So at some point in your development, you have to stop drinking alcohol, okay? So that's the alcohol front. It has a cleansing effect at the lower levels of your development. As you go higher and higher and higher in your development, it's not so good. It consumes your golden energy, which could be used for other purposes. Wink, wink, hint, hint. Okay. What about drugs? Again, removing the morality, removing the ethics, because truth is dynamic, right? In the 1920s, alcohol in the United States was under prohibition, and so it was illegal to drink. So does that mean if you drank in the 20s, you're a bad person? No. We're looking at it from the energetic standpoint. So with drugs, marijuana, could we go down the ethical route, the moral route? What about cocaine? What about heroin? What about Molly and ecstasy and all these different drugs? What about them? Looking at it from the energetic perspective, it's not good. What it does to your aura, your chakras, your chakra webbing is not good. Now, most of the people that are part of the Inner Transformation membership group, you guys aren't, that's not your world. And this is to give you understanding, but I would not recommend having a debate with somebody who uses drugs about this. Now, if they're saying, hey, I know you're into energy, into spirituality, into meditation, what are your thoughts on drugs? And you can give this viewpoint, but in general, people are not open and receptive to hearing it, and you're just talking to a wall. It's not really worth having the debate. So have people been using plants or plant medicine to have altered state of consciousness for thousands of years? Yes, and yes. Okay. Does that mean that's the right thing to do for a certain level of practitioner? No. In my experience and in my studies of other great teachers and spiritual practices, nowhere does it say in order for you to obtain illumination, you need to start taking this drug, LSD, mushrooms, ayahuasca, et cetera, nowhere, right? Nowhere have I seen that. So in my experience, it's a crutch. It's an excuse. It's a rationalization from doing the difficult work, right? So for instance, DMT, which was made very, very popular by the well-known podcaster Joe Rogan, right? And there's always jokes about him using DMT, talking about DMT, but basically DMT is there was a documentary done on it called The Spirit Molecule, which is fascinating, which for people who have training in spiritual teachings, they look at that documentary like, interesting. So when you take a hit of DMT, it's about $100 in general for a hit of DMT, and the experience lasts for for 15 minutes, and then you come down. That's why it was always known as the businessman's drug, because on a plane, you take DMT, you have your experience, and then you're completely coherent and ready to go before landing, right? So there's not like this lingering effect of the drug. Now, ayahuasca has DMT in it, the molecule in it, but it's over a longer period of time. So it's not that 15-minute intensity is not there. It's usually over an 8 to 10 hour period. So you're doing a less potent version of it. That you'll have a shaman work with you. There'll be purification practices if it's being done right, and then you will drink this concoction or tonic, and then you'll have your experiences. And I had a friend of mine who is a pranic healing instructor who had always wanted to do this. And he researched this for 8 months. 8 months. He goes, all right, what do I have to do to prepare for this? How can I clean myself, clean the energy? Like, how can I do everything to make this as clean, as wholesome as possible, right? Which, how many people would be willing to do that, right? Most people are like, hey, I hear this weekend, there's a ayahuasca ritual that some shaman in town's doing. And like, all right, let's do it, baby. Right? They sign up for it, they do it. And some have good experiences, some have not so good experiences, right? So he prepped, he invoked, he cleaned the energy. He did his meditation practices. I know before, but I even think during the ritual and then afterwards. And he told me what his experiences were, and it was relatively profound. And I said, okay, all things being equal, everything being said and done, would you do it again? Right? He cleaned it, he energized it, consecrated, did all of it. I go, all things being equal, would you have done it again? Would you do it again? He says, absolutely not. It took him 6 months of regular healing to remove the negative effects that were done to his aura and to his chakras. But at the same time, he goes, I'm grateful I did it. So he's looking at it from the other perspective because of what he shared with me, the insights that he got. Now, most people who use those kinds of substances in those kinds of ways are not going through 8 months of purification, understanding, doing all the precautions, changing the energy to have the highest level experience possible. But even that, it took him 6 months to heal from it, from the experience of what it did to his energy body. What about mushrooms? I know people that regularly do microdosing of mushrooms. It is not good. It puts holes. It literally burns holes in your aura and burns holes in certain chakras, which opens the energy body up to like energy of pranksters and things that will deteriorate your auric field and your chakra system. So it's not good. Again, nothing to do with ethics, nothing to do with morality. That if somebody uses these things, they're a bad person, this, that, and the other. In my opinion, people that do these are looking for shortcuts, and it's actually the exact opposite of a shortcut. It makes your life way more difficult, right? So one of the biggest things is people are under glamour, self-delusion, negative pride. I don't need to listen to anyone, right? So it's just easier. I always look at drugs as LSD or other kind of hallucinogens as in steroids for the energy body. That's how I perceive it, right? So you have this really intense, profound experience that you couldn't necessarily get to at your current stage of awareness and your current stage of development, right? So you take a pill, you take something, and you're like gone. You're like, whoa! I went to the galaxies. I saw aliens. I communicated with the dead. I did all these different things. So cool. Then they come back, and it's like, now what? They don't know how to go back there, right? Because they haven't built the bridges. They don't have the awareness. They don't have the understanding of what they're actually seeing, right? So not a big fan. Not a big fan. But again, people are going to do what they're going to do. I've always been fascinated with people trying to convince me that it is for their spiritual development. I know it's not, but what's the old saying? They're trying to convince themselves, right? So I don't need to convince people about practicing twin hearts or hatha yoga or anything like that. It stands as its own merit. So you practice it, you get the effect, you get the results, you get the benefit, right? I don't need to sell somebody to take DMT. Like DMT is the greatest thing because I think it's the greatest thing, right? So yeah, most of the time they're addicts. And it's really a dangerous slope because people that do recreational drugs with the under the guise of spiritual growth and development, it's a dangerous slope that they could get hooked psychologically and physiologically to the drug, and then they're off to the races. And then the energy and beings and elementals connected to the drugs is going to keep persuading the person's or keep strengthening the person's self-delusion so they continue to use. No, I'm telling you, like, this is helping me see the world clear. No, it's not. It's not. Why do you think taking a substance is helping you see the world clearer? Why do you think taking something that is altering your viewpoint in an uncontrolled way is helping you perceive the world more accurately? It doesn't make sense. It's not clear. So I don't recommend drugs. I don't recommend alcohol at most levels of your development. If it's occasional, it's not going to destroy your energy body, et cetera, but you have to ask yourself the question, is the temporary joy worth the days, the weeks, the months, even years of repair that it could be required? Like if you had a drug bender for a month, it would take probably a year or two to recover that from your energy body. Even depression, when you're depressed, that can take months of good, clean, quality, high quality energy from you, right? So you have a big aura, big chakras, you're vibrating, right? There's a lot of like cool energy going in and out of you. And then some lesson around depression comes in, you get depressed, and it sucks up all that energy. So then you're kind of starting from ground zero. So better just not to partake in it. Next question. If there is a particular person that is just really bothering me spiritually, energetically, etc., I just really have a hard time with this person. They just seem to come across the wrong way, negative, full of self-pride. just saying the wrong things, trying to get attention. All I want to do is bless them, have patience with them, and just have them be quiet. Shut up, don't speak. Is that me or them or both? How do I deal with that? What do you recommend? It's both. It's both. So how do I know it's both? You're being bothered by it, right? The person who asked the question, you're being bothered by it. So the fact that you're being bothered by it means that you have something to work on. So Grandmaster Choa Sui says, usually the most difficult people in our lives are our greatest teachers, right? So if you have somebody in your life that's constantly, it's like a sore under your nails or like a hangnail, right? It's not destroying your whole life, but you're just like, this is so annoying. That person is your teacher. What's the lesson? Most likely it's forgiveness and it's patience and tolerance, right? Recognizing that, hey, this person could be a young soul and they're learning and growing. B, this person is lacks the awareness of what's coming out of their mouth, right? They're saying unloving, unkind, inaccurate things, right? And negative pride is we're all predisposed to experiencing negative pride until we become holy masters, right? So even now, I'm the guy facilitating this group. I'm facilitating the energy. I'm facilitating the questions and how the questions are being answered, but I'm still suffering from negative pride. I'm like, well, I hope they like this, or I hope it's entertaining, or I hope it really impacts them and moves their lives forward because it makes me a good teacher and a good instructor and all those things, right? So those are energies that are playing in the subconscious mind. And as I develop greater awareness and understanding of who and what I am, and I become aware of my subconscious thoughts, which then are now conscious thoughts, and my subconscious programming, which then becomes conscious programming, I can start transforming myself and going, hey, you're saying this out of negative pride. Remove the negative pride, connect to humility, and then come from a different place, come from a different energy. But that takes time, right? So we have to give people space. Are there people in my life that annoy me to no end? Absolutely. But I have understanding. So they don't annoy me to no end day in and day out, right? Because I go, oh, I'm projecting negative thoughts or speaking negatively about this person. I need to practice forgiveness. I need to send them blessings. I need to disconnect the cord. I need to have understanding. This is a big, big one. I've mentioned it to you guys before, but with anything, it goes in one ear and out the other ear if you're not practicing. So having awareness of something is important. Like, okay, this person's making me angry or frustrated or irritated. I have the awareness of it. Okay, you forgive. Okay, we're all in the process of growing and evolving. We all make mistakes. Okay, may you be blessed with inner peace, happiness, and joy. May I be blessed with inner peace and happiness, joy. May you go in peace. May you go in peace. May you go in peace. Cut. Disconnect. Okay. You also have to have understanding. That's the difficult thing that people don't want to do because understanding requires upper chakras. So you can have the awareness, hey, that person pisses me off. I forgave them, but then I have to keep forgiving them because partly you're lacking the understanding of who and what they are and the dynamic between you and that person. You're like, aha, you're that person who's a great teacher for me. You're the person for my the channel for my negative karma. I want to work on patience. You're my channel for patience. I want to work on tolerance. You're my channel for tolerance. I want to work on forgiveness. You're my channel to practice forgiveness, right? My ex-wife, one of the biggest pains in the asses in my entire life, and we don't even talk to each other, right? But her coming into my life and how she showed up in my life, right? And having a son with her has brought me so many lessons and so much personal, material, emotional, anything you can name it. Growth is invaluable. Invaluable. Oh, always worthwhile and useful to receive gratitude. Yes. Like the person that used you as a doormat but calls you a best friend and keeps coming back every time they have a crisis in their life. Yes. Correct. So that's called a codependent relationship, right? We want to remove ourselves from codependent relationships, change the dynamic, have interdependent relationships, which is not easy for most people. So the people that come into your life that are difficult, they're your teacher. And you're like, sweet. Thank you so much for being my teacher. Thank you for the lesson. Thank you for being my teacher. Thank you for the lesson. You can say that without even knowing it, right? Master Choa talks about the stick of the lords of karma. You can learn by the compassion of the teacher, or you can learn through the stick of the lords of karma. And if you say, thank you for the lesson with humility, not complete awareness and understanding, but with humility, thank you for the lesson, the stick freezes in midair. It's like, all right, this soul probably is learning a lesson. Okay. We freeze, right? The severity, the suffering stops. But that requires humility. And then you can also develop awareness. Okay, well, what is what is it? This person's irritating me, frustrating me. Okay, that's my awareness. What can I do with that awareness? I can practice forgiveness and letting go. Okay, I'm going to practice forgiveness, practice letting go. I'm going to bless them. And then what else can I understand about this situation? Okay, and then the stick dematerializes, the suffering ends at that level with that person in that way. And then another person will come in to teach you another lesson, and another person, another kind of lesson, right? As a side note, connecting it with anger, I was sharing this with a client the other day. Anger brings bad luck. Anger brings bad luck. So if you're angry with someone and they keep coming into your life and you keep being angry with them, your general luck, not just with that person, around that person, but your general luck will go down. It brings bad luck. Okay, so be careful of that. So so your lesson is different than their lesson. So kind of connecting it to a relationship with people on the spiritual path. You have two people that are relatively the same level of development, like a husband and wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, even friends, right? Same level of development, chakra development, aura development, character building, etc. Right? And we are attracted to the people. The people we're attracted to are going to most likely match our development, right? But let's say one person gets onto the spiritual path consciously, right? And then the other person chooses to stay as they are. Well, what's going to start happening? The vibration between the two of them is going to start changing. And the gap gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And then there's like a noticeable difference. Now, the interesting thing is the person at the top, quote unquote, the higher vibrational person is going to have to develop what? Humility, patience, tolerance, and understanding, because they see the bigger, broader picture that their current partner doesn't. And they go, wow, I see this person's problems light years ahead of them, and they don't even see the next day of problems. But you have to be humble, because then you can start going, well, I'm more developed than you. I'm more spiritually evolved than you, right? So then negative pride kicks in a big, big way. And then squish, the person drops down. They fall due to negative pride, right? But the person who's not developing as well, they have to also practice humility with their partner to go, my partner seems to be more calmer than usual, seems to pick up things better than usual. Their life seems to be improving. I wonder if they know something that I don't know. And then they're going to look. What is it the person knows that I don't know? And that's going to require them to have humility, which to me, I always thought was interesting, because if I'm with a partner and I notice significant changes in my partner over a short period of time, I'm going to ask the question, what are you doing? Is it a new diet? Is it a new exercise routine? Are you, banging your head on the west wall 3 times every morning, and that's the secret to your success? What is it that you're doing? And I would copy that to get feedback and go, hey, it works. I mean, my head hurts for, an hour afterwards, but wow, my life is really improving. Christian, it's because you're stimulating the Ajna chakra. Right. So I would humble myself to go, what is it that you're doing? But if there's low self-esteem, low self-worth, and negative pride in the relationship between the two partners, there's going to be enviousness and jealousy. And there's not going to be that. It's because the gap is widening and widening and widening. Right. So it's the humility of I want to know what you're doing because I want my life to improve like your life, right? And it's also the partner that's evolving going, you know what? I've made my life better and I'm going to be an example for this person versus telling this person that they're no good. Look how much better I am than you. Look how much more evolved I am than you, which this dynamic works with intimate relationships as well as friendships, as well as your coworker, right? So if there's a person in your life that has those tendencies, recognize that they're suffering and recognizing that they're overcompensating for low self-esteem, right? So when someone's like, I have all these deep, profound meditation experiences, in general, they don't. They think they should have more advanced, more profound meditation experiences. They don't, and they want to give the perception, which is glamour, that they are having deep, profound meditation experiences, which is actually kind of funny because Master Choa said at one point, you know, just because you're clairvoyant doesn't mean you're advanced. I remember like you could hear a pin drop in the room when he said that because everyone had the assumption that an advanced or high level clairvoyant is very developed. Not necessarily. You could be super developed and not see anything and not even really have much noticeable experiences in your meditation. Even if maybe you don't even meditate, but the person has such a strong, such a profound connection to their soul and they're an embodiment of character building that they live a good life and they have almost no suffering. I know people that don't meditate at all that are super developed because they did other practices in other incarnations and they learned lessons in other incarnations and they practiced character building in other incarnations, right? So again, what's the lesson? What's the suffering you're experiencing with this other person? And there's your window of opportunity. They make you angry, you have to practice forgiveness. They they lie to you. Here's a big one. They lie to you and they deceive you. What's your lesson? Discernment. That's a big one. Discernment. And as Master Cho would say, for those who don't practice discernment, the karma is to be deceived. Master Ko actually talked about this a few times. So I hope that helps. Ooh. Next question. When we speak, we create. This is an excellent question that, to be honest with you guys, I don't really have a good like a good meaty answer to this one because I haven't looked at it and I haven't considered it from this perspective. When we speak, we create a form energetically. If we say Supreme God, what energetic form do we create? Is there a huge energetic formation of energy for these two words? And if we utter it, we can tap into it. Is that correct? Right? So we start every session, every healing, every meditation, every lecture with what? An invocation. What do we say? To the Supreme God. When you're saying to the Supreme God, you just gave form on the lower mental plane. Right? If I say the word apple for clairvoyance, you can see an apple literally in my auric field. Every word out of my mouth has form attached to it. Every single word. What it looks like is determined by the clarity of the speaker, right? And the amount of energy passing through the speaker. So if I'm a person who is in a certain industry and I speak of that, the jargon in that industry, my words will be more powerful in that world versus if I talk about things that I don't typically talk about. Like if I'm talking about something I'm unclear on, like if I start talking about quantum physics, I don't have expertise in quantum physics. So the energy will not be as solid, won't be as dense, won't be as crisp, right? But if I'm talking about energy healing, meditation, or practical spirituality, there's a lot of power and it's connected to power as well, right? I'm talking about spiritual things. So when we do the invocation, what do? To the Supreme God. What does that look like energetically? I haven't looked into it. I'm partially looking into it now. It's super bright. It doesn't really have much form. It's like, yeah, it's like, all right, the supreme God. Because in the Jewish tradition, they don't have a word for God, because when you speak the name of God in any form, you take the infinite and make it finite, right? You give the infinite form. So if I say apple, apple looks like a certain form in the energy world. If I say the supreme God, what does the form of the supreme God look like? I don't know. I don't know clearly enough to answer it to satisfactory levels. I think that's an excellent question, though. Also, and so when you think the invocation instead of speaking the invocation, the energy is also different. And when you invoke the beings, right, to the supreme God, divine Father, divine Mother, right, and we go through the hierarchy, they come immediately, right? That's why we invoke. We're bringing their energies in, and now they're here. So they're manipulating, modifying, stepping down, stepping up the energy. So each person, am I getting too deep for you guys? Each person who listens to this gets fed at the level that they can handle. That's the benefit of invoking them. Versus we don't invoke, some portals opened up, but it's not regulated. So the example we like to talk about is if you do Twin Hearts meditation and you don't invoke, the beings, the higher beings, aren't controlling, regulating, modifying the energy. So you're just like holding your hands up, and it's like Niagara Falls pouring down on you. It's too intense because they're not manipulating and modifying and changing the energies. Or due to negative pride, nothing comes out. Not nothing, but very little comes out. You're like, I don't need to invoke the supreme God. See, even saying that. Sorry. If you just say, if you have that awareness that I can do this all on my own, there won't be much energy coming down. But if you do it out of accident, because of forgetfulness or you're distracted or what have you, there will be certain angelic helpers that will come in and modify the energy. So basically, the more aware you become, the more training you have, the greater your level of initiation, the more responsibility you have. I want to share something with you guys, but it's a little bit too personal, not for me, but for someone else. Yeah, it's not me telling you, it's the people connecting to the energy. Scratch that. All right. but basically, at certain levels of your development, if you forget to do certain things, the severity is higher. I'll give you my example. Okay. I'll give you my example. So when I was traveling through the Pacific Northwest, I drove 5,000 miles within a 30-day period, May of 2021. I would camp. I would stay at Airbnbs. I would be all over the road, everywhere, right? And at certain places, I would set up my campsite, and I would start. I would just set up my campsite, and I would start feeling itchiness and burningness and irritability, like really not good. And I'm like, what is going on? This doesn't make any sense. And my mentor, I messaged her and I said, hey, how's the trip? How's the camping? How is everything? I go, yeah, everything's pretty good, but there's something going on with my campsites. And she goes, did you ask for permission? I go, what are you talking about? Ask for permission. Everyone else is camping. Why do I need to ask for permission? Because at your level, you know better. Even if you forget, or even if you lack a certain level of awareness, you still have to ask for permission to camp there. And she goes, your energy body is not an ordinary energy body. So you push the beings around a little bit, and they don't like that. So a little aura coming into the space, they're like, oh, okay, this person lacks awareness. They're a smaller aura. And then we have to kind of nurture them and take care of them. Your role is a little bit different. But you lack the awareness, but you're still going to suffer from it. So I experimented throughout my 30 days of I would invoke and I would set up shop, right? I'd set up my tent, or I would invoke and then meditate in that space. And then other times I would not invoke just to get the experience. What was it like? And 180 degrees, no joke. And I was being as objective as I could be about it. It's like, oh, well, of course this is going to happen because I did this. No, I was like, all right, let's invoke. Let's ask for permission. Let's see what the feedback is. Or I'm not going to invoke. Let's see what the feedback is, right? I wasn't like too influencing the energy. So what's my point? When you go higher and higher and higher in your development, there are other laws that you are now, other laws and other rules that you are having to be responsible for, even if you don't consciously know them. So you'll have someone come into your life, wink, wink to my mentor, that will come in and make you aware of those laws, because that's your karma, instead of continuing to suffer. Because what if over that 30-day period, I didn't have that understanding and I just went from campsite to campsite super uncomfortable, or went from Airbnb to Airbnb super uncomfortable, or hotel room to hotel room super uncomfortable, or meditating in these beautiful lush environments but being very uncomfortable? That wouldn't have been a fun 30 days, right? So luckily, very early on, it was actually my first camping experience. Right at the beginning of my trip, that lesson was taught to me, and I was like, okay, got it. And then I experimented to get feedback, to make sure that I wasn't crazy, or my mentor wasn't crazy. The feedback was sufficient, and I said, okay, from now on, moving forward, wherever I set up tent, whenever I hike, whenever I meditate, whenever I go to the bathroom outside. You guys don't know about that one. Master Choa talked about that one. I don't want to belabor the point. Story for another day. I invoke. I ask for permission. Okay? I hope that helps. Great question, though. I wish I could answer it more satisfactorily. Next question. We are in sales no matter what we are doing. Pranic healers, massage therapists, Reiki masters, etc. What sales training books you or pranic healing masters have tried or read that is effective that you would recommend? I think I got to reword that. What is sales? Sales is identifying a need, filling that need for another person for compensation. That's it. One of the master pranic healers said many years ago, you can't sell healing. I was like, I've sold a lot of healing. What is he talking about? Meaning, in sales, you're typically using your solar plexus chakra, right? You're overcoming resistance. The client gives you resistance. Oh, I don't have the time to do it. I don't have the money to do it. I have to ask for, permission of my spouse. I have to, right? All the different objectives that people have to overcome. I need to think about it, blah, 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 right? I've heard them all. I've been in sales for 20 plus years. Been there, done that, right? I've been very successful in sales. So with healing, people want to feel loved. People want to feel connected, provided for. They want to feel soft, loving energy when they're experiencing an exchange with you, not a solar plexus connection, right? Because the solar plexus is trying to dominate the other person energetically. You can't do that in healing. The healing, right? Pranic healers, massage therapists, Reiki masters, which is actually, interestingly enough, as you become more sensitive, you become more picky of who works on your physical body, right? So if you have a massage therapist that has a lot of solar plexus energy and they can't calm down during your massage, you're going to feel that during the massage and after the massage. Another tip is you always want to get your massage therapist at the beginning of their shift, because their energy is cleaner, less congested, less connected to other people, right? So get them at the beginning of their shift. But on Wall Street, as one of the masters in pranic healing would say, he who has the biggest energy wins, or he who has the biggest energy always wins. So if you're talking about lower chakra activities like money, like lower business, real estate, stocks, options, currencies, what have you, lower chakra things, if your solar plexus is bigger and more developed than the other person's solar plexus, you'll win the day. But at what cost? Because there's not really much of a harmonizing factor. So you push, the person collapses and they give in, right? That's how you win. But in the healing arts, it's not the same way. It's not the same way. So what books would I recommend, or what have the pranic healing masters recommended for sales? Number one, I would recommend Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People, because it's heart and throat chakra. And those skills were written in the 40s, and they're as relevant as they are in 2021. Okay. Another one is The Go Giver. I would recommend The Go Giver. It's a great sales book because it's about coming from a space of how can I serve you first and foremost, and I will be compensated. Hello, law of karma, right? Law of karma. What's another book? How I Raised Myself from Failure to Success in Selling. It's an old book written in the 60s, but again, universal truths are universal truths, right? And another way of looking at it, the heart attracts. Knowing what I know now and knowing what I used to do in sales when I started selling 20 years ago, I was too solar plexus about everything. So I was really good at using my solar plexus and my throat. And I could convince and persuade somebody, right? Persuasion is sex and throat. I could persuade somebody to do something. I wasn't selling things I didn't think were good for them, but if people had a resistance, I knew how to work through their resistance. But in the healing arts, and if you want to do a higher level of selling and get referrals and et cetera, you do it through the heart. So when you talk to people, you be aware of your heart, and then the words are coated with pink energy. And then it hits the person's aura and it transforms and transmutes stress, worry, fear, inner resistance. It's not manipulating them, because who doesn't want to connect with someone that we feel good around? Like, hey, when I hang out with so-and-so salesperson or so-and-so healer or so-and-so massage therapist or so-and-so real estate investor, I feel good. I feel loved. I feel acknowledged. I feel heard. And we just keep spending time with them, right? So talking and connecting from the heart, very, very important. Trying to think of some other books. I haven't read a good sales book in a long time. The Go Giver was very, very good. Another sales book. And again, all this stuff is about strategy. Like, how do I sell? How do I sell? How do I sell? If you start with the energy, everything else will pretty much fall into place. Like, if your heart is expanded, your crown is expanded, and you know your product, hopefully, you can go, okay, you can find the need. By the way, asking questions is solar plexus. And what I mean by that is, you want to ask a question that you know will move the transaction in the direction of a sale. Like it'll move the conversation in the form of a sale. And then people don't do that. That's one of the biggest reasons why salespeople fail. It's because they don't ask for the sale, which is connected to the solar plexus, right? Courage. So it's like, okay, I know if I ask these 3 questions and I can answer these 3 questions satisfactorily for this person, I know they're going to buy, but I'm afraid of asking them. Miracle Morning for sales and or Miracle Morning is great. I didn't know he had it for sales though. Am I missing something? He does? Okay. The Miracle Equation. So check those out. I can verify the Miracle Morning, excellent book. I can't verify the Miracle Equation, but look into those. Miracle Morning is an excellent book. Very, very good. But I don't remember it being connected to sales. I guess we'll get clarification on that. But the number one reason why salespeople don't succeed is they don't ask for the sale. So they have the person in front of them, and what do salespeople prefer more often? This is another big one. It's connected to self-esteem, connected to solar plexus. They want to be liked, right? Okay, if I get the person to know me, like me, and trust me, and not talk about business, we're going to close the deal. No, that's not true. That's being incongruent. Professionals go right to the cause. Like if you sat with your doctor is not going to like talk about everything and anything outside of your problem, your ailment, your condition. They go right to the condition, right to the ailment, right in the beginning of the conversation. True, they have to have bedside manner of talking a little small talk in the beginning, but then they get right to it. So that's what a good salesperson does. Hey, how are the kids? Hey, how's the weather? How's the day? Build some kind of rapport, right? From the heart, magnetizes, right? Heart energy attracts people. And then you say, okay, what is it that you need help with? For those of you who work with me, those of you my clients, I do that. I'm a product of what I'm sharing with you. I go, okay, how are things? How are you? What's the problem? Okay, I listen, I do my best to understand. I ask any question. I'm not like, I hope they don't get offended with me asking these very personal questions. I go, okay, what's the problem? Okay, what's the outcome that you want? It's called what's your heaven? What's your heaven? What are you being on the other side of this problem, condition, ailment? What would that look like? What would that feel like for you? Like this, and this. Okay, if I could help you with that, are you on board? Yeah. Okay, great. This is how much it is. That's it. Well, that seems a little bit aggressive or to the point or whatever. No, because I know I can help them. If I don't know I can help them, then I can't help you. Or here's another strategy that you go do. It's called consultative selling. You're being a consultant, right? So that's why most salespeople don't ask for the sale. Is they're afraid of not being liked, which is personality and ego and the lower self. And what if they reject me? Like I ask for the sale and they're not interested, or ask for it wrong and they're not interested. Well, you have to practice it. If you're the expert and you can help them, then push a little, but with love, like firm love, like I can help you. Master Ko actually talked about this in teacher training. If you know how much you can transform another human being's life and transform their soul, it's okay to push a little. I was like, I've been doing that for years. Right? I know unequivocally if someone worked with me for a prolonged period of time, you will be a better person in every single area of your life. No hesitation, no doubt at all. So I'm willing to push you a little bit and go, hey, do you want this or not? Do you want to move forward or not? Do you want to hold on to this thing for another 5 years, or do you want to let go of it in 3 months? Right? Okay, there is a version specifically for sales and another for network marketing. Okay, interesting. Okay, so there you go. Check it out. The more no's you get, the better you get. Celebrate them. Easier said than done. Yeah, I remember being terrified of, oh my, what if they say no? Now I don't get no's anymore. It's actually kind of funny. Like people don't say no about healing because I'm an expert in what I do. And I don't say that from pride. I say that from 22 years of doing this work, right? So if you are good at what you do, then it's okay to ask for the sale. But if you can't deliver and you're crappy at what you do, then you need to get better at what you do before asking for the sale. That's only fair, right? But if you're good at what you do, ask for the sale. So you don't need to read 20, 30, 40, 50 books on sales. There's some core principles. Follow those core principles in those books I just gave you, the 3 books, The Go-Giver, How I Raised Myself from Failure to Success in Selling by Bediger, and then How to Win Friends and Influence People. Master those principles, the world is your oyster. Sales is the highest paid profession on the planet. If you can sell, the world is your oyster. Every successful CEO of any company can sell. That's why they're in the position that they're in. Next question. What's the most important virtue? Whoa, we ran over. We're all excited today. What's the most important virtue to practice? Ooh, good question. What's more important, your left hand or your right hand? Now, to give it a little context, the school that we're part of, Pranic Healing or Hatha Yoga, is the school of compassion and mercy. So that would imply that we focus on which virtue of the most other virtues, loving kindness and non-injury. Loving kindness and non-injury is the most important virtue for people that are attracted to this school. What's the most difficult virtue to master? Accurate perception, correct expression. What's one of the most important virtues to master to keep going with the virtues in your practice? Constancy of aim and effort and non-laziness. So you put your schedule together. I work from this time to this time. I meditate from this time to this time. I work on my character building from this time to this time. I go to retreats from this time to this time of the year, this, etc. But my experience has been taking our Hatha Yoga with Master Choa and reviewing our Hatha Yoga with Master Choa several times. He would shift it back and forth depending upon the group he was talking to between those two virtues. Okay, loving kindness and non-injury for the next 3 months. Next retreat. Okay, constancy of aim and effort and non-laziness for the next 3 months, or 2 months actually, for the next 2 months. Because if you don't have constancy, you give up on practicing anything and you never develop mastery of anything, right? So it would be dependent upon the group that Master Choa was teaching. So that's why, yes, we have the Arhata Yoga manual that you follow clearly, but the teacher is also dynamic. The teacher is also reading the room. The teacher is also looking who needs to be fed in what way. And so based on the room, right, know the room, then he would say, okay, everyone do this. And it's not in the manual. You're like, but wait a minute, it's in the you're telling the teacher, but it's in the manual that you wrote. So he would always go back and forth between those two virtues. Loving kindness and non-injury starting out for 3 months, or constancy of aim and effort and non-laziness for 2 months. He would always say one of those two. He would never say, okay, for the next 2 months, moderation and non-excessiveness. All right, next 2 months, accurate perception, correct expression. He would always say one of those two. Most of the time, he would say loving kindness and non-injury. When I started with him in pranic healing and Hatha Yoga, he said constancy of aim and effort pretty regularly. No pun intended, right? So I would take a class. The first class I took with him, he goes, okay, constancy of aim and effort, non-laziness, next 2 months. Then loving kindness and non-injury. And he did that two classes in a row. And then the third one, he goes, okay, loving kindness, non-injury, because he realized people were becoming too severe. People were becoming too forceful, too aggressive, because their auras were getting bigger, their chakras were getting bigger, their inner power was increasing, but the love aspect wasn't. The love aspect was not keeping pace with their other development. So he's like, okay, loving kindness, non-injury. Funny enough, loving kindness, non-injury, it's the only virtue that's 3 months of all the virtues. Now, true, you can do all the virtues for 3 months, constancy of aim and effort, 3 months, but in the manual, I think in the older manual, if I'm not mistaken, it was 3 months for loving kindness and non-injury, because it was 1 month on the self, 1 month on others. It was non-injury. I forget the order from the older days of doing it, but basically loving kindness and non-injury would be done for 3 months, as opposed to the other virtues that were done for 2 months. So what's the most important virtue to practice? Loving kindness and non-injury, if you're part of this school. Next question. What is the no meditation technique? I love this one. So the no meditation technique Master Choa talked about. He goes, okay, you have twin hearts, you have a protocol, you raise your hands, you bless the earth, you drop your hand, you picture a point of light, you let go. Then what do? You do something, then you come back, you move your hands, you release the excess energy, you ground yourself, you give thanks. Okay. Where's the no meditation technique? Meaning there comes a point in your development that you have to let go of the technique. You have to let go of your practice. So you do your practice, and at some point you have to let go of the technique, because you become what? Calcified in your thinking. Like, this is how we do twin hearts. Imagine if every instructor in the world, including the masters, didn't tap into higher intuition and just did twin hearts all the time, exact like the exact recording of Master Choa, there would be a lot of dynamic energies missing, and there would be a lot of intuitive healings missing because of that. So at some point in your practice, you have to start letting go of the technique and go higher. It's a little hard to describe without going into our hatha yoga techniques and our hatha yoga meditations. But in essence, you be consistent with your twin hearts meditation or your other practices. But at some point, you have to transcend that and go higher. I know I can feel the energy. How do I explain this better? Okay, so Master Choa says fanaticism must be avoided. So people can become fanatical with their technique. Like, okay, like for instance, they go, okay, well, I did the exercises this way, and I'm not doing them any other way. So if you say you can do hatha yoga before twin hearts, no, I have to do these. No, you can do hatha yoga. It's okay, right? They become fixated, calcified, inflexible. They don't have enough understanding because they're just like, well, this is what I was taught. Yeah, but what's behind the scenes with what you've been taught? So you have to kind of be flexible, adaptable, transcendent. Like an example was I've been doing the exercises the exact same way since I've been taught almost 18 years ago from Master Choa directly, right? The exercises, the pre-meditation exercises. But and so at one of the retreats, the masters were teaching a different sequence, and I had to let go and go, okay, they know something maybe I don't. They see something maybe I don't. And then they would explain, this is why we're doing it versus the older way of doing it. And I go, huh, very interesting. That makes sense. And as Master Ko would say, does it make sense? If it makes sense, move forward. And I was like, that makes perfect sense. So I was willing to let go of my old way of doing it and doing it the new way, quote unquote, the new way. So we have to be flexible and adaptable. Truth is dynamic. Pranic healing is dynamic. So sometimes you have to let go of the technique. All right, a little bit better understood. Okay, what is the purpose of a spiritual practice? Oneness. That's the purpose of your spiritual practice. The purpose of your spiritual practice isn't to brag, isn't to be envious, isn't to avoid life. Master Choa says spirituality is more than just meditating, right? So your spiritual practice is your life. It's how do you practice life? Pretty cool way of looking at it, right? How do you practice life? Yeah, the purpose of your spiritual practice is oneness. I'm trying to think if there's anything else to clarify with that. Yeah, I would also ask the question, why do you do your practice? Remember Ajna chakra, understanding, aim, why? If you have a strong why, as the saying goes, if you have a strong why, you can withstand any how. So if you have a strong why of like, I want to become illuminated for X, Y, and Z reason, or I want to have inner peace, or I want to quiet my mind, or whatever the reason you have for doing your spiritual practice, then you'll be consistent and persistent with it. If you don't have a strong why, when you don't feel like it, you won't practice. When times are tough, you won't practice. When you have friends coming over to visit, or visiting for the weekend, or visiting for a week, you won't practice, right? So you have to have a strong why. Why do you do your practice? What's the ultimate purpose is oneness with God, oneness with all, right? But you can also go to lower purposes to keep you engaged, to keep you in the game. I can tell you this, my motivation now of why I do my practice is, I don't want to say 180 degrees different, but it's much, much different of what my motivation and what my why was of doing my practice even 3 years ago. Very different. Very, very different. So you have to practice self-assessment, self-honesty. Why do I meditate? Why don't I meditate more? Right? Have understanding. Next question. Why do monks live ascetic lives? Because they choose to. Heyo. Why do monks live ascetic lives? Because they choose to. Basically, as I understand it, many monks, many priests, many rabbis, many people of strict spiritual practices were hedonistic previously. They were hedonistic previously. So the energies are balancing it out. So previous incarnation, the person was a party animal, having sex with everyone, traveling around, being inconsistent, crazy emotions, like everything was all over the place. So the pendulum has to swing. It doesn't necessarily swing from the next lifetime, but it can. Then the person becomes a priest, a rabbi, a monk, a yogi, and they become very aesthetic. And many of them, right, they not vowed, but they kind of stuck to a hedonistic viewpoint. And now they're like, okay, I'm going to not have any attachments. So that's why they only have a couple pieces of clothing. Their possessions are minimal, right? Because they're practicing detachment, practicing letting go, practicing not being identified with the physical world. Even their spiritual practices. Yeah. So if you look at the Tibetan monks, when they do this, or hold on, yeah, they do this, or they do this, but they don't go to the heart. Why don't they go to the heart? Aren't they Tibetan monks? Aren't they practicing compassion? What's going on? Because they don't want to connect to the physical plane. Interesting, right? So you see them go like this, but they don't go lower. When they do their invocations, they're not like this. Cool, right? So they live aesthetic lives because they're balancing out. They could be balancing out a previous incarnation of hedonism. They're practicing detachment from the physical plane. That's why they don't have any possessions, and the practices they do don't entangle them in the physical world, right? If you're sleeping with a bunch of people, you're entangling yourself in the emotional world, the sexual energies. And if there's exchange between your fluids and someone else's fluids, physical fluids, it's keeping you connected that way. So that's why they make the vows of celibacy, vows of poverty. Yeah. So it's a choice. It was interesting. There was a pranic healer who was a Buddhist monk for 8 years. He learned pranic healing. He learned Arhatic yoga. He started to practice Arhatic yoga, and he started expanding his understanding. And he left the monkhood recently. Within the past year, he left the monkhood because he wanted to live a more balanced life. Right, the path of moderation and non-excessiveness. Lord Buddha did both sides, the extremes, and he's like, wait a minute, I think it's the path of moderation. So he realized for 8 years he was extreme in his viewpoint, in his lifestyle, that wasn't bringing him the fulfillment, and he didn't perceive it was bringing him closer to oneness with God. So now he's practicing Arhatic yoga, and he left the monkhood. He left the monastery. And then last question, when one is stuck and don't know where, what, how to get unstuck, I might have to reword this. What's the first step one should take? So you're stuck and you don't know what to do. Sit down and go up. That's my first recommendation. And when I say go up, what do I mean? Identify with the soul, identify with the soul, identify with the soul. Even in the sutra books, Master Choa talks about what happens if you have a big challenge in front of you. The first thing is to identify with the soul and see the challenge like objectively. And that's it. That would be my very, very first thing to recommend to anybody. Is you got a big obstacle in front of you, sit down and go up. You have a big challenge in front of you, sit down and go up. You feel like your world is falling apart, sit down and go up. You feel completely stuck in a rut You can't move your butt forward, sit down and go up. Because when you go up, you identify with the inner strength, the inner power, the light of who and what you are, which then what happens? The light comes down and dispels the darkness. What's darkness? Ignorance. The reason you're stuck is because you're ignorant about something. Who knows what it is? Only you can know, right? Through the higher self. So when you sit and you go, okay, my physical body is sitting here. I'm not my physical body. My emotions are really distraught right now, not these emotions. My mind is all over the place, running rampant. I'm not these rampant thoughts. I am the soul. I am the soul. I am the soul. And then you can literally start experiencing the challenge being removed from your aura. So you can see it objectively. And then you go, as a soul, what's the right thing to do? Right? As a soul, what's the right thing to do? So it's that thing that you think you are your challenge, you are your depression, you are your sadness, you are your fear, right? As you identify with who and what you are, I am that I am, that thing can't hold on to you anymore because you expand, you expand, you expand, and then it's objective. You look at it, you go, aha. There have been many times recently that I've had to practice that of going, the heaviness in my lungs, I am the soul. How does the soul perceive this situation? What's the right thing to do or not do? Okay, the right thing to do is to rest. Even though my personality wants to not rest, okay, the body needs to rest. Be compassionate to the body. Okay, fine. Don't want to be compassionate to the body, right? But what's the soul want? Okay, I'm listening. Okay. Other times it's like, come on, let's go. We got things to do. We got work to do. We got healings to do. We got service to do. Let's go. Come on, right? And then the soul comes down and controls the bodies and moves the bodies forward. So that's my ultimate takeaway. And it sounds so simple, which it is in theory. It's not easy to practice, but that would be my encouragement and my recommendation for anyone who's stuck. Identify with who you are, recognize that you're not the thing that's causing you to be stuck. Now look at it objectively. What would the soul do? There were a couple times that I was like, what's the right thing to do in this moment? And I could literally sense the separation. My personality and my ego were like, I don't want to do that right thing. But my soul had a strong enough influence over me. And he goes, okay, this is what we're going to do. It's okay, emotional body. It's okay, lower mind, but we're going to do it. I understand you're irritated and afraid and you don't want to do it, but we're going to do it. So we did it. So that's what I would encourage you guys to do. Connect to the soul, connect to the I am, connect to the I am, connect to the I am. Okay? Ta-da! We finished. Yay! So, thank you for submitting your questions. Keep your questions coming. ChristianRlong@gmail or ChristianRlong on Facebook Messenger. Send them to me. Question 1, question 2, question 3. Mix it up. You can ask questions on the spiritual plane, about spiritual planes. You can ask questions about the mental plane, the emotional plane, physical, financial, relationship stuff. There's many, many different directions we can go in, right? This is infinite, the Q&A, that's what makes it great. And then we have one more Sunday to add, and then we're completely caught up. One more Sunday to add. And I will be hopefully meeting up with one of the pranic healing instructors here in Honolulu this weekend. Hopefully. She had a class this past weekend, so we didn't get together because I was doing things, enjoying my last 10 or so days here in Honolulu. Okay, so let us close. Be aware of the heart, be aware of the crown, be aware of them together. To the Supreme God, Divine Father, Divine Mother, respected and beloved teacher, Grandmaster Choa Koksui, Lord Mahaguru Jmeling, to Lord Buddha Kuan Yin, to Lord Ganesh, also to Sarasvati, the goddess of wisdom and intelligence, to all the holy gurus, holy masters, saints, archangels, holy angels, the angels of wisdom, the angels of awareness, understanding, to our divine selves or higher souls. We thank you all for your great, great blessings, for your soothing, healing energies. Thank you for helping us become better people, better souls. Thank you for increased humility, knowing who and what we are and where we're going. We thank you, Lord God. We thank you all with gratitude, respect, and love. So be it, and so it is. Thank you. Ta-da! Thank you, everyone. Again, check out Miracle Morning, which I can vouch for. Excellent book. And then the recommended book, The Miracle Equation, which I cannot vouch for, but I'm sure it's of good quality. Okay? And I will talk to you guys and see you guys soon. Bye.